and welcome to this next tutorial on charts. In this tutorial I'm going to show you a little bit how the charts work, what the options are, and how you can really use them to zoom into your data specifics. So let's start first to go over to the menu on the left hand side where you can see all different topics about the charts. So let's start simple with dragging in the most basic chart, which is the bar chart. A very useful chart which gives you a very easy representation. Once the bar chart is dragged, you can see immediately it already has some content. Default, the bar chart has the activity attached to it, but of course I can switch it to any element I want. So first about the layout. Where you see the dots, you can put your mouse and you can drag and drop it in any way you want. So in this way you can visualize your container, larger, bigger, smaller, and the content will adjust according to it. But let's now go into more specific. You can see that the chart title here is actually empty. This is because we didn't attach any title yet, so it will give the name of the attribute. But if I want to give it a specific title, so title for activity, for instance, I can do it over here and that title will be represented. In the chart's table type, I can actually switch it. So if I don't like the representation of the bar chart, for instance, I want to switch to a column chart, I can easily just switch it around here. But let's now go back to bar charts. As I mentioned before, the bar attribute is here automatically selected to activity, but I can of course switch to any other data attribute that I want. Next, matrices. Matrices give me the way how the data should be summarized. For instance, now I have count events. I can also do it by the number of cases, combining all the activities by cases that I have. But I can also, for instance, do a sum or an average or any data element I have. So, for instance, if you have a number specified by an amount, I probably want to have the average or the sum of it instead of the total numbers that were represented in the data set. So I think we have all the things covered, like attribute matrices on summary, averages, distincts. So you can also do the unique ones, min, the max, the median, the modus, and things on throughput times, like the sum of the throughput times, the averages, the min average and the max average of the throughput times that are represented in the entire case. Then we have a very important part which we called filters. I will cover that in a separate topic, but to summarize it very quickly, any filter you normally set to the system, I can also set to an attribute here. Then we have norms. In the norms, I can actually define color codings that need to be represented based on a certain value. I will have a different video linked to the description as well, where you can really see how the norms will work in more details. Then we have the filter options. So in chart filters, I can specify specific filter only for this chart. I can say if I want to filter here on open cases, closed cases, or all cases. And I can set the sorting. So automatically the sorting will be from alphabet, but I can also say descending by category or the metric. Then we have the show top X items. This will represent the number of items or elements you want to represent in your chart. Default is set as to auto, which is most of the time a perfect fit. But let's say I only want to have the top 5 cases, for instance, and I can then select the top 5, which will only represent the top 5 elements of that specific attribute. We have a couple of Boolean set that we can say for show others, apply filters, apply time, and whatsoever. So if I apply filters, that means that if I set a filter in my entire dashboard, it will automatically apply to that chart as well, or exclude it from it, and it will always represent the stable value of the chart that was set. I can say apply time filters. So you have normal filters and time filters. So if you don't want the filters to be filtered over time, you can set as well. We have a show null category. Sometimes we have data sets where null elements are being represented. And then with the show null categories, we can say, do you want to include or exclude them from the chart as well? The label part is just a visualization on the chart itself. So do you want, for instance, the data labels? If I put it off, you can see only the charts and not the labels of the numbers represented. Sometimes actually the labels will not be shown if the bar becomes too colory because it's too big. But normally if it's visually represented in a correct way, we can select show or not show the data. We can switch between percentages or just a number. So if I just want to have a representation of percentages, I can do that as well. If I want to have a specific X label, I can say it here. So set label on X, and it will be shown in the chart here on the left hand side. Or I can say show I labels as well. And then if I have a name, it will represent it on the bottom as well. Then if I want to have a legenda in the chart, I can set it on top, or I can set it to any area like the bottom, the left, the right, or whatsoever. In styles, we can have different ways how the gradients are being filled. Again, in the norms, we can even switch the colors as well if you want to, but this is more the styling. Do we want to have a solid bar, or do we have a little bit of a gradient bar? Just a small difference, but it makes sense sometimes. So now we created our first bar chart, and this will give you already a good representation what is possible. For all the other charts, I will not go over all the details because a lot of the settings are very similar. I can show you that, for instance, by switching here from a bar chart to a column chart, where almost all the settings are the same, only the representation of the chart is different. But I will go over the different areas that are specific for the charts. So let's dive into it. So let's go over now and say we want to add an area chart. An area chart is a little bit different because it represents things, for instance, over time a little bit better. So for instance, if you have a timeline attached for attribute time, it can automatically say how to bin the data. Now it's set automatically. If you want to set it to years or quarter or months or even weeks, we can switch it. But this is perfectly aligned for having a sort of representation over time for instance, in this case, events. Another thing that is a little bit different than you don't see in the other charts are the curved styles. So for instance, the monotone is the default style, but if you really want to have a step in line, for instance, which makes it very hard lined, you can do so, or a line step, or straight, or just a very smooth edge, which gives you a lot of nice curves. So here you have a couple of different options that you only see on the area charts and the line charts, by the way, that you can set. Something that is different as well is, of course, the pie chart. It is a very round chart, which you can imagine. And defaultly, this one is set, for instance, to percentages, because that's what you normally get on pie charts. If you want to change that, of course, that is possible as well, including setting all the labels and all the other attributes, etc. And something that is different here is we have different styles. We have the monochrome and the monochrome gradient, but we also have the gradient solid one, which will represent any color by a unique category that is represented in this chart. By the way, these colors can be set in your theme settings. So in your theme settings, it will pick one of the colors over there represented here. Another area is the donut chart. I can actually switch very quickly from pie chart here to donut chart, which is more or less the same as the pie chart, but the only difference is that totals and numbers will be represented in the middle. In some cases, people like this more. And then we have a radial chart, which gives you the lines of every single element. By the way, the color that is represented here, the orange, is the color of the data set. I'm not sure if I covered this already in earlier topics, but if you have a data set, automatically it is a color attached to it. So you can actually also make differences if you attach multiple data sets to one chart. So if I, for instance, have another data set, I can set that to another color and then switch it on. And in this case, it's the same data set, so it will overlap probably much. But here you can see the differences in the bar chart, for instance, from the first and the second data set. So this can give you a really good way to see the differences between two different data sets in one specific chart. Let's go back to the original one. All right. This is then the radial chart, as I mentioned. There are specific use cases where that can be very useful. And then we have the Gauss chart. And the Gauss chart is a little bit more specific because it has different options specifically for setting norms. So you're probably all aware what the Gauss chart can do. but the Gauss chart is representing always the total in relation to the number of filtered elements that you see on your screen or in your filter set. And to show you a little bit more, let's set a filter. For this case, I'll just select a couple of variations here quickly. Selecting 1, 2, 3, 4 variations, which gives you a good coverage of a couple of cases. And then this Gauss chart will represent the number of cases represented based on the total in combination with the filter. Okay, next up is our text chart. A text chart is a little bit special as well, but normally it represents one element from a total or a sum representing a KPI or a total or whatsoever. But it can actually hold much more to it. So let's dive into it. So first of all, if you go to the section on the right hand side and go to general, you will see there the text area. There you see actually a variable called metric, and you can actually add extra elements there as well, which will be represented in that container. This can be just simple text, but you can also use the markdown language. For instance, if you use a hashtag, it will give you an ident in combination with a bold font, which then is now called header text. But I can also make the metric, for instance, bold by setting an asterisk. So putting an asterisk up front and behind. Oh, actually I should do 2. And then this text should be represented in bold, as you can see here. I can also make things like bullet lists by adding a dash and then calling a text behind it. And automatically you will see that there actually are scroll bars there as well. So you can really make your entire summary of your insights here, which is very easy if you put that on your dashboard once one of your colleagues logs in, or you share this dashboard with someone where you can see a summary, which will actually be dynamically filled. If you don't like the header as well, you can just remove the title and everything is then nicely lined up to your markdown language that you put in the text. The last one, not least, is the HTML frame. This is a representation of an HTML element that you can drag and drop into your canvas, and it contains pure HTML. It is represented in an iframe for the technical folks. If you don't want to know what it means, you can leave it out. But in this way, you can make integrations, for instance, on another website or an intranet web page directly into your dashboard. In this example, I just put in some images and some text that are loaded from something else, but you can really include any HTML link from external in here as well. Of course, it will not do anything with filters because that doesn't make sense, but you get the picture. All right, then I covered most of the topics. There's one topic I want to, actually 2 topics. First one is on the cases and events. You will see actually a combination of these dashboards, but with presets specifically on cases or specifically on events. For instance, the case throughput percentages or times, and that can be extended as well. For case level attributes, event level attributes, sustainability. And the last but not least are bundles. And the bundles are actually a very powerful combination of all these things that I just described, including settings, areas, etc., where you can just drag and drop a whole set of elements all at once. So this gives you a representation of all the case information that you want to have at the first glance of your process. So the open cases, the durability, the closed cases, the median of the cases, the activities, etc., the coverage, the cases over time, etc. So all these elements are represented in these kind of bundles, which gives you a very quick dashboard building area. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching and see you at the next one.